And so please describe to me what the aesthetic look is exactly.
More like this guy here.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and bring
Oh wow, you really have to come in here?
like this guy.
Is this really happening? He meant the other guy behind you, bro. Like I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm right into that bad boy.
You can stay right there, behind the camera, behind the camera. No, see now that you got me jealous now.
That's okay.
That's not
no,
fair.
but you're more in the category like Luther Arnold. Name?
My man.
Okay.
Yeah. Arnold Ferrigno. Huh?
Okay.
Aesthetic.
That's great, partner. You two ever go out place everything in its proper place?
That does not make sense, but we usually do go. We head to Kroger's, and we work.
Oh, yeah. I've got a lady waiting for me back home also. She has the most beautiful scrotum. Oh, God. And when she sings, she sounds just like a puppy dog. How do you nail a photo?
Just gotta get in the mode. You gotta talk with your eyes.
Talk with your eyes.
Talk with your eyes. You
Okay,
gotta
so
have the eyes
can you show me a little bit of something, like to this camera? I would love to know how to do this. I just want to know.
Well,
how
I
do you do
mean,
it? Teach
the
me
smile,
something.
You can get the sexy eyes. Then you know you gotta get the smile going on some shoes. But you know,
Wait, hold up.
You got-
I got to
when it's
try
time-
this
when
with
it-
you.
when it's
Hold
time
on.
to laugh,
I got to try
you
this
gotta
with
think of
you.
something funny
All
and start laughing.
Do it again. Do it again. How do you do it? Teach me.
sexy eyes.
The sexy eye.
This is sexy eyes right here.
Smizing?
Smile.
So you're smizing.
Smile.
Okay.
And then you gotta get the.
No, I look like I need to take a poop or something.
wish words were like little toy guns. No sting, no hurt, no one, just a bang, bang. Right?
Is that it?
Yeah, it's something like that. Just a bang,
Toy
bang,
guns.
rolling off your tongue.
Toy guns.
It's no smoke, no
Bang, bang.
bullets.
Water guns. All right.
Pascal, you are now rocking with that dude Pascal. We be going wild, Haitian in the building, so original. Got the haters catching feelings. Get your hands up to the ceiling and keep them held high. Cause St. Louis is ready. Forget about it, goodbye. Hold up, we just saying hi. Five somebody, rise up. Weekdays, catch us live. Somebody, let's go.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Pascal Show. Yes. What's up, everybody? I hope you guys are having a thrilling Thursday afternoon because, I got a gift for you today, guys. Yes, that's right. It has nothing to do with my guest. It has everything to do with me. Forget my guest. It's because I'm on for the second time in a row, and you just saw me a couple hours ago on my morning show, and we're on again in the middle of the damn day. Yes, put down your burger. This is real. This is not some weird apparition. This is real. I am real. This is not a ghost. Pascal is in full effect right now. I'm totally kidding. No, for real, I'm very excited about having my guest on today. This man is a living legend in himself. He has coached and trained some of the most vicious fighters in the world, and I'm so excited about introducing this gentleman onto the show. We are live right now, y'all. And if you guys have any questions, comment down below before I start introducing my brother here. This man is a freaking legend, like I said. Please welcome Tom Yankello to the show, y'all. How you doing, man? What's good?
Brother, thanks for having me on, Pascal.
Hey,
Thank you.
Anytime, brother. Anytime. This is a truly a blessing to have you on because there is so much. There is so much to divulge. There's so much to dissect over the past, from the past fight. And I'm so excited about having you on because I really wanted what's the word? Get your own 2 cents on this whole situation. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And on the fight. Now, for those of y'all who don't know who Tom Yankello is, he is the trainer and coach for Roy Jones Jr. Roy Jones just had a big ass fight, legendary fight with Mike Tyson just earlier this past weekend. I'm sorry. And it was one of the highest grossing pay-per-view events to date. It was a huge fight. Everybody and their mom was seriously at the edge of their seats for literally months for this fight. It was one hell of a fight. So we got to break it all the way down. We got to talk about all this stuff because there's so much going on in that fight. There was so much going on before, during, and after that fight. I cannot wait to get your 2 cents on this. So before we jump into you, of course, being in the corner with Roy, coaching him throughout the entire fight, I got to ask you the origin story. How did you guys meet in the first place? Where did the relationship start?
Well, we have a mutual friend. We had a mutual friend that lived in the Pittsburgh area. And he's actually trained in Pittsburgh for the Joe Calzaghe fight and for the Felix Trinidad fight. And he trained in, it was actually outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It was in California, Pennsylvania, which is about 45 minutes from downtown Pittsburgh. So he just grew to really like Pittsburgh. And he started to, he announced one of the fights in Pittsburgh that was on ESPN. And then he started to want to, when he was going into promoting boxing, he started promoting fights in Pittsburgh. And my brother was one of the main. He was the main matchmaker in the city at the time, and I had the main gym with most of the professional fighters as of today. And we just got to know him I got to meet him and got to talk to him at the fights when he held the promotions in Pittsburgh, and then they did like a podcast with one of the great WDVE, Jimmy Crenn, who was a main figure in Pittsburgh for WDVE radio for years, and he did a podcast in my gym with Jimmy Crenn, and I just got to talk to him and talk boxing, and we really had a good rapport talking about the boxing, a lot of respect for each other's insight and knowledge. And I told him, I said, you ever want to come up here and work with me and see how you like it, you're always welcome, of course, So then he said, yeah, I think I'm going to do that. So, we got to working together probably back in, it was 2011 I worked with him. And then after that, he liked the way we worked together. And then he had a fight scheduled in 2011, in this winter of 2011. And he says, I'm going to come up and train with you for this fight. We're going to do 6-7 weeks together. Wow. So that was the first time I worked with him back in 2011. So we periodically, we worked together for 2 fights. And then he was just trying to land a big fight. At the same time, he was working for HBO. And he was promoting boxing. He was training fighters. He started training fighters at the time.
Yeah.
And I was going on all kinds of trips with him on the HBO gigs that he had. And what happened was it was just, he wasn't able to land that big fight and didn't know when he was going to fight, how long he was going to continue to go on. But it just wasn't making sense for him to continue to come to Pittsburgh or for me to continue to travel with him to all these gigs, because I had my own gym, I had my own fighters, he had his own fighters. So we worked periodically together from 2011 to about 2015, and then the last 3 years of his career, he kind of worked with some guys that he had been working with for a long time as well, that were always involved with helping down in Florida. Elfie Smith and Valerie Cooper worked with him. So those guys kind of like were working with him like the last 3.5, probably like 2000, like around 2015 to 2018 when his last fight was before this. But when this fight got announced, I had been doing all kinds of YouTube videos on Mike Tyson, and Mike was one of my favorite fighters. I always enjoyed him, and I was breaking down his style, and I was getting ready to. People were asking me to do an instructional video, like a longer instruction. I do smaller videos on my YouTube. It would be like, the longest video would be like maybe like 8-9 minutes. So I was going to do an extensive instructional video on Mike Tyson. And in this fight, I started hearing that he was going to fight again. And I told my wife, I says, they're not saying who he's going to fight. They're just saying he's going to fight again. I just, in my head, I just said to myself, I said, if they offer this fight to Roy, he's going to take it. Because
right.
He's the ultimate competitor, and he's always wanted to fight Mike Tyson. So I just had a feeling that something was going to happen. And it was like 2 days later, I seen him on his Instagram saying he was going to fight Mike Tyson. And so that from there, I reached out to him, and I just told him that I know I could really help him in this fight. Breaking down, I knew how to, I knew things that I felt like were Mike Tyson's weaknesses, that I knew that he could neutralize, capitalize on his weaknesses, and things that strengths that he had. I knew there was things that, Roy could neutralize as well, with, neutralize his strengths, capitalize on his weaknesses. And I kind of like, I know Roy, so I really just felt like it was really, a good thing for us to get back together. And it made sense because we could make it work out because, the situation's different. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, when I called him and I reached out to him, and he was real receptive, and he says, yeah, man, I'd love to get together with you. Why don't you, I'll come up to Pittsburgh, and then you come down to Florida, and then we'll figure out where we're going to do the rest of the camp. But that was like the last week of July, and the fight was supposed to be September 12th. So he was supposed to come to Pittsburgh. And then what happened was, when they announced the fight, the Triller production team had already flown to Florida he's getting ready to come to Pittsburgh, and then they told him, "You can't go to Pittsburgh. We already have planted here in Pensacola, and we're not going to reroute because of insurance purposes because of the COVID."
Right.
So they couldn't route and go to Pittsburgh at the time. So he asked me, "Will you come down here Will you come down here for the time being, and then we can figure out if we can get it, reroute it back to Pittsburgh." So I said, "Yeah." So I went down to Florida for 2 weeks, and I worked with him for 2 weeks. And in that time, a 2-week period, I was going to stay a little longer, and then he was maybe going to try to get the Triller production. They were working on trying to. Then the fight gets pushed back all the way to November 28th. So at that time, like I said, we were about 2 weeks in and working together, and I just went back to Pittsburgh because we had such a long. Now we're all the way back to November 28th. We were supposed to be September 12th. We're like 2 weeks into August, and I went back home. Mm-hmm. And then I just laid off the training a little bit, where he just kept his cardio going a bit and did some things. And then first week of September, he came up to Pittsburgh for a couple of weeks. They were able to. At that time, Triller decided they weren't going to even pick up the production yet until later on in the camps, because the fight was pushed back so far. So he had come up for 2 weeks in September, and then he would go back. He went back to Pensacola for a couple of weeks, and he came back to Pittsburgh for a couple of weeks, and then went back to Florida for a couple of weeks. He had fighters that he was training, that he went to some fights, and then he went back to Pittsburgh for another 2 weeks, and he went to another fight, and then for a week, and then he came back for the last 10 days in Pittsburgh, and then we went to LA. So altogether, from like the first week of August, we probably put about 9 or 10 weeks in together for this fight. And he kind of did, when he was off, he kind of like just did some other things and cardio and worked with some of the guys that had been down in Florida that he had worked with. But we put about 9-10 weeks in for this fight together.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how much dedication there is in regards to just one fight. You know what I'm saying? Like how much time and dedication and just the blood, sweat, and tears, literally the blood, sweat, and tears that are put into getting ready just for one single fight is incredible. And I could see that just driving any man crazy, any human being crazy, just the anxiety, you know what I'm saying? The anticipation, just anticipating a fight like that, especially when you're about to go toe to toe with Iron Mike Tyson. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like it's no joke.
Unbelievable, yeah. And the intensity throughout the camp it just builds,
Yeah.
For sure.
So can we go back? Because I mean, before we jump into the main thing, I mean, obviously everybody's tuning in because they got their questions and their thoughts and their own opinions about the fight between Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. And most definitely, fellas, ladies, if you have any questions, please comment down below. I will make sure that I read them live on the show. We are live. This is not a recording. This is live. So please comment in the comment section, and I will make sure that they are read here very, very shortly, because I see the chats starting to percolate a little bit. But before we jump into everything, before we go into that fight, I want to know a little bit more about you as a coach. Who was your first pro? What was your first pro card? Who was your first pro fighter in the first place?
Well, I started working with Paul Spadafore. I ended up winning the lightweight championship of the world in 1999. Started working with Paul in 1997 as his head trainer, but I had a relationship with him and worked with him and been around him since probably 91, 92. And he had a previous trainer that he had started with, and he passed away, and that's when I took over as the head trainer with Paul. And then a little over 2 years later, he ended up winning the lightweight championship of the world. But I had started training him. He was already a professional. He was probably, I think, about 12-0 at the time. and then 13-0, both 13-0, and then he ended up becoming 27-0 and won the lightweight championship of the world. And he retired 49-1-1. So that was my first introduction to professional boxing.
That's incredible. And, no big deal, right? No big deal.
No big deal. And then I had other guys that were contenders and guys that I brought up, and then I ended up training Calvin Brock, who ended up fighting for the heavyweight championship of the world against Vladimir Klitschko in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
Calvin was a 2000 Olympian, and I also started working with Calvin as a professional. I got Calvin when he was 10-0 as a pro, and I developed a relationship with Calvin in the amateurs a little bit. I had met him in the amateurs. I had a kid that I had started up in the amateurs that ended up being a 9-time national champion, Raquan Kimbrough, and he was at the Olympic trials at 17 years old, and Calvin was also at the Olympic trials, and I met Calvin in 2000 in the Olympic trials. Just chopped it up with him, really talked boxing. He had a lot of, at the time, Paul Spatafor was world champion. He really liked, and he had worked with his dad his whole life.
Yeah.
And they said when they turned professional that they were going to be looking for professional training. They just felt like they wanted to do that. They felt like they weren't above, getting some other expertise and really letting somebody else be his head trainer as a professional. And his dad was still in the corner, but his dad just felt like he didn't want to do anything to hold his son back. And they felt like that Calvin needed a guy with a lot of experience. And it was funny because I had built a little bit of rapport with Calvin, but he also worked in Charlotte at Bank of America, and he worked in a building, and my brother worked in Charlotte, and they worked in the same building.
Wow.
So they got to meet each other, and they got to talk as well. And my brother was, instrumental in building the relationship too. And then, like I said, in 2002, Calvin turned pro in like 2001. And then a year later is when he called me and just asked me, he's like, man, I'd really like to start coming to Pittsburgh and really start to take my professional career to the next level and really work with you. And that's when we started working together. He was I think he was 9 or 10-0 at the time. And then he ended up going on a 20-fight win streak. He was 29-0. He fought the great Vladimir Klitschko for the heavyweight championship. And, gave him a pretty good fight up to the point where he got caught with that steel hammer right hand.
Yeah.
He got stopped at 7th. But had a really good run with Calvin. The sad thing about Calvin is I believe Calvin could have came back and won a world title. There was other world champions. Vladimir was just the best guy out there, and Calvin ended up suffering a detached retina. He ended up getting eye surgery and ended up coming out blind. He actually went into surgery with vision. He came out of surgery with no vision.
Oh, wow.
So just a freak thing. The doctor said that he had a stroke in his eye. I know I don't know if he had some really mixed emotions about that surgery. He went through that surgery. Like I said, he had some vision. He had blurred vision. He comes out and he has no vision. And to this day, he has not regained sight in that left eye. So it's a shame because I felt Calvin could have went on. I mean, he's a very, 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 very good heavyweight. I feel like even that night, if we were fighting any of the other champions, I felt he would have won a heavyweight title. And I worked with so many other guys. Like I said, national champions, amateurs, 16 national champions. I had Teddy Two Guns Reed, who fought for the welterweight title. I had worked with him one time. Monty Mezzaclay, who was the number 1 contender at featherweight. Brian Minto, who was a top 10 heavyweight in the world. Brian Minto was number 10 in the world when Calvin was number 1 when he fought Klitschko. So I had worked at that time. I was working with 2 top 10 heavyweights in boxing at that 2006. So a little bit my background there is.
I mean, it's very it's heavily decorated. You know what I'm saying? You've been training a lot of really great fighters, and obviously sitting down and figuring out a game plan with this recent fight with Roy Jones Jr. is quite an interesting thing. You know what I'm saying? And obviously, this ain't your first rodeo. clearly this ain't your first rodeo. And like I said, the fight was really, really entertaining, and it was really a sight to see. And I know that everybody wants us to get down to the meat and potatoes, of the fight, getting straight to the fight and all that. And so before we go into the actual fight, and you did say this during the interview that I had, the special that I had, interviewing Roy Jones. Obviously I was blessed enough to meet you and got to chop it up with you too. And you talked about the approach that you guys were going to do in regards to the actual fighting Mike Tyson. Do you think that you guys accomplished said goal in the fight?
Well, I think a lot of it, I would have liked to see Roy, land a little bit more jabs and land a few more combinations, But I think that, he kept the fight in the middle of the ring. I mean, the biggest thing for Mike Tyson is, he destroys you when you go to the ropes. And he wanted to get, that's what he wanted. He wanted to get Roy on the ropes. In the past, Roy has, the ropes have been really bad for him as well. And I knew that was the key to the fight, try to keep the fight in the middle of the ring. And I know a lot of people are talking about the tying up. And, for one thing, the referee was was not breaking the fight, the clinches up as soon as he could have. He could have done it a lot earlier to keep on breaking the clinches. But that's what Holyfield did to Tyson. That's what Douglas did to Tyson. I mean, for people, what did they think that he was going to do? He was going to stand and slug with Mike Tyson? I mean, yeah, that was a master plan Sugar Ray Leonard did. He moved and he tied up Marvin.
So is that the standard? Was that the standard approach for a lot of fighters? Like, okay, clench up with him, because the closer you are with him, the harder it is for him to start swinging and going after the head and the body? Or was he just winded? Because I feel like a lot of people were saying that, just on Roy's side, they were saying, oh, Roy is just tired. That's why he keeps on clenching up with Mike Tyson. That was an approach that was a plan to clench up with him.
Absolutely. I mean, anybody that's ever given Mike Tyson trouble, I mean, Holyfield early on, we only had 2-minute rounds, but the bottom line, that was what Holyfield had given him a ton of trouble. He tied him up early. He walked him back. Mike is like a train. If you let the train start getting momentum, that train will run you over. But every time you make him stop and you walk him back and you have to make him start, that train, it's literally like a train. A train has a hard time getting started if it keeps on having to restart and has to get pushed back. So you're building momentum for a guy. If you don't tie him up and walk him back, that is devastating. And anybody that is in trouble, I mean, you could go back in fights, Tony Tucker tying him up, Bone Crusher Smith, Holyfield, Buster Douglas. That is how they started those fights off, tying him up, walking him back, and keeping the fight in the middle of the ring. I mean, you're making him do what he doesn't want to do. That's what the great Bill Belichick said. We make teams do what they don't want to do. Well, we did that with Mike. We made him he wanted to push us to the ropes. And that's where he knocked out Frank Bruno both times. I mean, Jesse Ferguson, his thing is to, Marvis Frazier. We can go on and on. I mean, those are the danger zones. So, the key was we were in a very small ring. So movement was a lot more difficult. We would have liked to moved a little bit more and had a little bit more room to move.
Yeah.
But, Roy would have liked a little bit but again, we felt like a lot of things were geared towards, at first thing, the fight was supposed to be September 12th. We knew at that time that Mike was never going to be able to be in shape after all this layoff. That he was going to. So then they pushed the fight back, which was to his benefit. Then the 2-minute rounds was kind of like a thing where, he could come out and he's an explosive. He's a fast energy style. So now he's only got to keep that up for 2 minutes, and then so that kind of could have worked in his way. You could look at it the other way, where Roy only had to stay away from him for 2 minutes and score points. So that kind of that's debatable, the 2 minute round.
Right.
But also, I felt like the small ring was also something that we didn't have any negotiation with it because Mike was the A side, and Mike was the guy that offered the fight to Roy. So Roy took the fight. Mike was the guy. He was the A side of this fight. So he got the ring size, so which was to his benefit. So, with that being said, the fight I felt like was a very, 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 very subjective fight, depending upon what you like. And I watched it probably 3 or 4 times. And if you put it in slow motion, I have so many people seeing that fight differently. And the judges did as well. I mean, you had Vinny Paz had it Roy by 3 points. Then you had Christy Martin had it I had it for Mike for 6 points. And then you had Chad Dawson had it a draw. So,
yeah.
And people that I talked to, everybody has seen something different in that fight. And when you slow down, I even saw last night, I was watching it again. In the second round, the announcers, Mike threw a left hook at the same time Roy threw a left hook. And everybody made a big deal and thought Mike landed a left hook. If you slow it down, Roy landed the left hook. He's the one that landed the punch and Mike missed, So you got to really have a good eye for what you're watching. Mike Tyson was a good wrestler. Mike landed some very good body. And sometimes that doesn't get seen as well. So I did see that. I seen all that. But Roy landed, not saying that he landed a lot of hard combinations. He landed some sharp left hands from a southpaw stance that people probably didn't see. But he landed that no-look jab. He was landing a lot of little sneaky pop shots in there that were actually solid hits. The one they slowed down after the second round and he caught him with the left jab. So, I mean, and you seen it was a definitive punch,
Right.
Punches where some of them were definitive to the body. But even in the clinches, I felt like the referee should have we were clinching to slow the pace down. You don't let somebody continue to tie you up if you don't want to. In other words, Roy was tying him up pretty good, and he could have done certain things that I even teach on my YouTube channel to be able to break clinches. And I felt in the clinches that Roy was landing some shots in there as well. And Mike wasn't doing work in the clinches. And it wasn't Roy's fault that the clinch was there because he's going to initiate the clinch, but he wasn't going to continue the clinch. The referee's job is to break, separate it, and let them start to box again.
Right.
But anything that was forward momentum, that's part of the game. Everybody that says it isn't, it doesn't watch enough boxing. I mean, every great mastermind of great performances, you go back and you watch Sugar Ray Leonard fight Marvin Hagler, he moved and he tied up. He moved and he tied up, and he made sure that Marvin Hagler wasn't getting momentum and getting confidence, and he was walking him backwards. When it's not only he tied up, he walks him backwards. They would see Roy tie him up. What would Roy do? Roy would walk Mike backwards. What you're doing is you're slowing the momentum down. And I felt like Mike didn't throw. I mean, Punch Stat said he threw, I think some of the rounds, most of the rounds, he threw more punches. But I tell you, man, I don't know who's control of that. It's a computer watching it. And I felt Roy was throwing some really sneaky pop shots, and he was also in the clinches throwing punches. He was trying to work. I felt like he was trying to work into clinches more than Mike. Mike was, and then a lot of people say that, I heard a lot of people saying that he didn't try to do things in the clinches with Roy. He didn't try to get rough. But if you look at past fights of Mike Tyson,
yeah,
you could say that's one of his habits. That's a bad habit. When he gets tied up, and I knew that watching the fight, watching and studying fights. I told Roy, I says, if you bump him up with the left shoulder, or you bump him up with his shoulder or the right shoulder, you get an angle on him, you will be able to walk him straight back.
Yeah.
Orlando Norris, cruiserweight, was able to walk him straight back. And when he clinches, he becomes very docile. He becomes very submissive. So that wasn't anything different, than what he's done in the past. People that don't like I said, Mike Tyson has mesmerized people's minds from what he has done in the 80s more than anything. And people just never forget anything else. I mean, they don't remember. I should say they don't remember other things. They don't remember. I mean, in history, Vander Holyfield has 2 wins over him, but people don't talk about Evander Holyfield. They talk about Mike Tyson. And then at the end of Tyson's career, I believe Mike Tyson was, 3 out of his last 4 fights, So people just remember he really, like the unbelievable stamp that he put. And listen, justifiably so. One of the, still in his prime, in his early 20s, one of the greatest heavyweights. Not taking anything away from him.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
No, of course not. I mean, he obviously has done quite a bit to the game to the sport of boxing in the first place, but so has a lot of other boxers as well during that era as well. It's just that fight is just such a. I mean, just this particular fight, I feel like gave boxing a little bit of a jolt. In a positive way, it got the old and a little bit of the new mixed into one. Old generations really that loved boxing that may have fallen off, lost interest. It woke some of those old boxing fanatics and brought them back into the game, into the sport. And I think it, with like Jake Paul and the Nate Robinson and all that stuff, really brought some of the younger generation that might be interested in boxing or didn't have not ever seen a boxing match before. I think it really introduced the sport of boxing to the younger generation as well. So I thought it was a really, I mean, regardless of who ended up winning this fight or who ended up, obviously it's subjective. You're right. It was super suggestive. So many people are sitting there going, oh yeah, Tyson won by a landslide. Then other people say, hey, Roy did his damn thing, by landslide as well. So it is really a matter of perspective for sure. But go ahead. Sorry.
It really is. It's funny because I walked into my gym and I mean, of course, people in my gym be a little biased, but they even had like a confused look on their face. Like, I can't believe people were saying that Mike won that fight. Like, Roy was landing the cleaner shots, and he was dictating the middle of the ring, and he wasn't. And he showed showmanship. He did this, he did that, and they felt like Mike Tyson didn't throw enough punches. And in the clinches, Roy was throwing the. Like I said, I mean, some of these punch stats, I was amazed to see that they said Mike threw more punches because I felt like he was aggressive,
right?
But he was throwing more punches in that fight. Like a lot of people were like, "Whoa, he didn't throw that." And then people were saying that he won some people were like this, and I get it. I get it because people watch through their own, through their own eyes. Even they have before they even watch a fight, they have something in their head that they want to see. It's their fighter, it's their guy, so they're only seeing what they're doing because that's their guy. You know what I mean? That's their guy. And vice versa. I mean, Roy's, but we were in a corner trying to really. I had, Jonathan Banks and Russ Amber in my corner, very experienced guys, and we're really talking while the fight's going on or watching the fight. And I'm saying, what do you guys think? Like, I want to be able to even give Roy a gauge between rounds, or what, where is he at in the fight? Is he behind? Is he ahead? Is he? And they really thought that he was either edging it or was very, very close. Like, it was a very, very close fight.
Right.
So the draw, I don't think we have a major gripe with that. I felt Roy did some things. Like, I watched the fight last night, and I scored. I think I scored it. The rounds were so close.
Yeah,
they were so close that usually I hate to score even rounds. But I'm telling you, it was very, very difficult. And Vinny Pazienza did that. He scored like 3 or 4 rounds. He scored even. And I felt the same way. Last night, I think I scored it. I believe I scored it. I had 3 rounds even. And then I think I had, how did I say I had it? I had it, I think I had 2 rounds even. And then I had, I think I had 3. I'm trying to think what I had like what I did, and I forget. I wrote it down.
It's all good.
But we're winning by 1 point.
Nah.
I felt like the first rounds they were even. So I'm thinking the first 3 rounds I felt like they were even. The 4th round, I could have slid it to Mike because he did a little bit of things there at the end that he kind of stole the round against Roy.
Yeah.
And I give it to him. And then I felt like the 5th round was another round with questionable. I think I even scored that round even. And then I felt Roy won the 6th and the 7th. And then the 8th was another round that was up for grabs. But I felt like, it was even to the point where it was, now that I'm thinking of, I think I scored like 4 or 5 even. It was like down to the 8th round that I felt like it was 4 rounds even, 2 rounds to Roy, 1 round to Mike, and we went into the 8th round. And I watched that round like 3 times, and I just couldn't figure out who had won that last round. It was that close.
I mean,
I hate to get another even round, but to me, that's what it was. I felt like there was 2 definitive rounds. I felt like the 6th and the 7th, Roy had landed a real nice sneaky left hand at the end. He landed a couple pop shot jabs there. I felt like Mike was trying to be the aggressor, but he wasn't landing any punches. In the 7th round, Roy landed maybe 1 or 2 or 3 good pop shots off, but he threw a 4 or 5 punch combination 3 different times. He made about 1 or 2 of those punches count, or he landed them. And I felt like you had to give him that round.
Mm-hmm.
That was like pretty much the most definitive round of the fight was the 7th round that Roy won that round. And then the 8th round, like I said, it could have even been another even round. So almost to the point where, you had almost 5 even rounds, and then you had 2 rounds for Roy that I felt were pretty definitive and 1 round for Mike.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really like.
There's they only look at the big shots, like the big
Right.
hits. If it hits him and he
that is something that anybody that's been successful against Mike Tyson or have broken that up earlier. But what we were going to continue to do every time Roy got close to the ropes, or every time Roy would get off of a pop shot or make a move, and maybe Mike was overly aggressive and we needed to slow that momentum, we're going to tie up. Because it's clearly as a frustrating tactic for somebody like Mike Tyson, who's like a freight train. He wants to get that motor running. He wants to become that train. It's just like a truck. If you got a big truck at the top of the hill and it starts to come down the hill, it's very hard to stop. But if you can give Mike's credit, he was on top of his game with his head movement, his anticipation, his timing. He was very hard to hit. Like I said, I give you all the things on Roy's side. I give you all the things on Mike's side. Mike was in great shape. His body looked great. His head movement was great. I mean, he was very hard to hit. Very hard to hit. We had worked with some good kids in the gym, good sparring partners in the gym. There were some things that happened to Roy that I felt like his movement wasn't as smooth the week of the fight. But just to let you know that to give Mike credit, because Mike deserves credit. He came in great shape. You could see that he was on point, head movement. His timing to make punches miss and attempt counter punches that I felt like I said, I don't think he landed some of the counter punches that they gave him credit for. But defensively, he was very, very elusive and very hard to hit. And he did a great job of being in great shape as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was one hell of a fight. I mean, let's not let's not downplay it. You know what I'm saying? The fight was one hell of a fight. Seeing those guys back in the ring was absolutely amazing. It was really dope to see them do their thing. And yeah, I mean, it is all about perspective in regards to who won and all that. I mean, I'm going to be completely honest. I think the draw is kind of a cop-out, but I think it's very smart if they're planning on fighting again. So I'm going to ask you this. Do you think that there will be another fight between Tyson and Jones? Is there going to be a Tyson and Jones Part 2 coming up?
I think it could happen. I would be for it because I know the things that Roy did in that fight. There was a lot of good things he did in that fight, and I just think that he could be better, and he will be better if they did it again. I think he would be better. I think that a lot of people don't realize, man, when you're stepping there with Mike Tyson, man, he's an imposing figure.
Yeah.
It can cause a lot of hesitation and doubt on certain things. Roy will tell you he's strong. He says there ain't no, it's not no myth. It's not no something that's some kind of like just fabrication that they make up about Mike. He says Mike is incredibly heavy-handed, incredibly strong. He did hit Roy with some good body shots, and Roy had mad respect for them. And he just, those things can play in your mind going into the fight to just the unknown of not knowing,
right?
Facing. So I think that if they were to fight again, it would actually be to Roy's advantage because
why?
Because Roy would be more relaxed, would be a little bit more, and like I said, there were some things that happened the week of the fight. Like I keep making excuses, but his movement wasn't as good as it could have been.
Yeah, what happened? What happened before the fight?
Well, Tuesday in training, his knee locked out on him, and he was not able to do anything on Wednesday and Thursday. He had acupuncture on Wednesday, Thursday, massage therapy. Friday was ice heat, and then Friday night we did a little bit of work, light workout, to try to see if we could get how it was going to feel. And then it started to feel a little bit better. Woke up Saturday, it felt pretty good, but there was a little bit of, again, I think that played a part in his mental, how well he was going to be able to move in the fight. And, just not getting any workout that week hardly at all, because Monday we had flown in and we didn't get any work. And then, he worked out a little bit Tuesday, and he actually hurt his knee second round of shadow boxing. So it kind of like, that was, and then Friday we worked out light, but he really didn't get the way for a fight where you kind of just steadily taper off, and you get some good work. And then, like I said, he was kind of nursing that knee for 3 days before that fight. So kind of like, physically Saturday, I felt like he was pretty good. I'm not going to say that he had the movement, but I think that when you have something like that happen, it can also play a mental thing. Especially when you're fighting a guy like Mike Tyson. So, like, what I'm saying is I feel like if they were to fight again, I don't really think that Mike got in great shape. He can move his head, he moved his head tremendously. His head movement was good. He can be aggressive the way he was again. I feel like we know the things to do to be able to stop that aggression.
Yeah.
And I just feel like Roy would have an advantage because he would be a little bit more relaxed. I think just, we all know that the last go on a fighter is a punch. So we knew Mike Tyson had tremendous power, and anybody that's ever fought Mike Tyson, I think they have mad respect for that. And not that Roy would ever not have mad respect for that. But at the same time, I think Roy would be a little bit more confident on what he could do and relaxed to what he could do and knowing what he could do because he's already done it. And just do what he did the last fight, but be able to land more shots just by having a little bit more, feel for the fight. I mean, he's already done it now. He did it for 8 rounds with him. So now he knows the angles a little bit better than what he could do. He knows his range a little bit better going in the next time.
Yeah.
I think that's what happened. I mean, if you watch the fight, like I said, I think the 6th and 7th round and the 8th round could have went either way. But I think that if you watch the 6th and 7th round, that's when he started to let his hands go. A lot of people felt like the fight was going to go the other way. I heard Max Kellerman on First Take say that, after I watched the first 4 rounds, and I felt like, Mike is really going to start to get to Roy in the next 4, and Mike is just too much for Roy. And a lot of people said, like, Roy was so tired, right? So, but the opposite happened. If you look at the 6th and the 7th, Roy started to come on, throw 4 or 5 punch combination. He started to get more comfortable started to find his range, started to find that timing, and I think that would carry on into the next fight. And I think that Mike probably, I don't think that he could probably do it. I think that he's not a great fighter and can't make adjustments. I'm not meaning that. I just felt like that Roy was the guy that really had to play the game of cat and mouse, and he would be a better cat and mouse in this fight. I always told him he's the cat and the mouse in this fight, and the mouse of moving, but the cat of striking. And he was a pretty good mouse, and he would tie up at times and be elusive. But being a better cat, I think he would be a better cat next fight. I think he would be able to land better punches and be able to land more flusher shots and be able to put more combinations together.
Would it be the same approach this time around, or would it be or would you guys do a brand new approach if there was a second fight coming up, which most likely there will be? But
well, I hate to let the cat out of the bag or fight, but I mean, a lot of the things that apply, a lot of the things that work will work again, and history shows you that. History shows you styles make fights. Certain things that certain fighters do to other fighters can really affect their style, and throughout Mike's career, that's something that has always caused him problems, movement and tying up, and of course using the jab, which Roy would, I believe find his range better next fight on that. He landed a lot of little jabs and little pop shot jabs that he did land, and I slowed it down. I said, man, he landed that jab. No one even said anything about it. He landed that jab. No one said anything about it. So, I feel like he would make those more definitive next time. And like I said, Mike would try to do his best, I'm sure, again. But I just feel like Roy would have Mike always has that chance to catch you. So anything can always happen next time.
Anything's possible, right?
Mike's got one punch power. He's proved that. So we're not going to say that. But I just feel Roy would have a little bit more of a mental edge going in next time, because I feel like this time maybe Mike had a little bit more of a mental edge because he's Mike Tyson. He has an aura about him, and everybody, it's hard not to get caught up in that. No matter how great you are, he's done that to so many great fighters. And
that is true. But he also showed up high. He showed up high as hell too. Mike Tyson. He didn't what I'm saying? He had no worries. It was kind of like, hey, we're going to go in here. We're going to do what it do. But real quick, I'm going to take a few hits and I'm going to go in there. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of what it was. I mean, the dude was, he admitted to, using before he was in the ring. You know what I mean? And that's really, that's a really big thing. You know what I'm saying? And so, I think that that's kind of like the attitude, or how I feel like he was approaching this fight, where it was just not saying that he didn't care. Obviously he cared, but he had something that would let him not be as anxious, or maybe, calm his nerves or whatnot. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Sure. It's amazing that he did that, and he admitted that he smoked weed before that fight, and
that's heavy, man.
That's heavy, man.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, who does that?
And I'm sure he would do that part again as well.
Facts.
So, it's like, that's why I said I don't know if he can do much better. I think that his aura, carrying into this fight, played a part that wouldn't play a part as much next fight. Always dead, always knockout punch. But the unknown when you fight Mike Tyson is one of the things that you have to get over. You know what I mean? And Roy has got that unknown. He knows what is in there with Mike. So the next time they would fight, the unknown wouldn't be there anymore. That unknown aura that just he's probably he's arguably the greatest puncher in the history of boxing. I mean, George Foreman, Ernie Shavers, Rocky Marciano, Mike Tyson. I mean, who else? You know, I'm sure there's a few other guys out there, but like he is an argument as the greatest puncher that has ever been in a boxing ring. So, you know, that's something that, you know, when you go in there the first time, now you go in there the second time, that unknown and is a little bit dissipated. You know, it's a little bit diluted.
That is
so.
True.
Now I feel like that would help Roy in the next fight. You know, would definitely help him. So,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, if it happens, I'm all for it. You know, I thought it was an entertaining bout. I felt like it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of people. I think it inspired a lot of people. I talked to people that were, you know, a lot of guys that were even in their 40s. And they're like, man, I wish I could get in that shape right now. Those guys are in their 50s and they're in shape like guys that are in their 30s. You see these guys, some of the guys that are critiquing the fight about how well or how good or how bad those guys looked or how well they looked, or just critiquing the fight, period. And some of them were saying some negative things. And they're in their 30s and they're fighters and they got bellies on them. And,
right.
And these guys are in great shape. I mean, Roy. You know, Mike was just ripped up. We know that. But Roy's always carried over the last, you know, 4 or 5 years of his career. He's carried a little bit of extra down low, but he was in. That didn't have anything to do with him being in shape and being winded. Like I said, a lot of that being winded like that was kind of the unknown of getting in there with Mike Tyson. And I just feel also him laying around all week and not being able to do anything. Now your body's just in a little bit of shock of getting into that intensity.
Right.
Of all of a sudden you're not active for 3 days. And now you're in a big event against Mike Tyson, and you have all this unknown even about your leg and about Mike. And I think that played a little bit of a part. But then I think that's why when you watch the fight, you thought that early on in the fight, that the later on in the fight, it was going to be worse for Roy. Well, it ended up being the opposite, because what happened was he started to become more relaxed. He started to find his range, started to become a little bit more secure in there of the unknown, and he was able to start getting his range on his punches and his time. He was starting to get his time. About the 6th and the 7th round, he landed some really, really good shots, and he started to let his hands go. You started to see the 4 or 5 punch combinations. You know what I mean? So, man, two legends, man, at that age. I mean, there shouldn't be anything but love for these guys. They made an unbelievable event. I thought the whole production was just a grand slam. I think
that was incredible. That was a gorgeous gorgeous presentation. I thought it was really great. I could have gone without all those musical performances, though. They could have just done like one. Let Snoop Dogg run the entire freaking show, because he was the GOAT. Like, he killed it as a commentator. Yeah. So they could have just let him do the whole thing and smoke all the weed he wanted throughout the entire fight and commentate, and that would have been enough. Trust and believe.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, Snoop Dogg was just
everything.
So good. He was phenomenal, and he was funny and insightful, and he really added to it, man. He made it a lot of fun. I watched the replay. Oh man, I loved it. I watched it. I watched it a couple of times just to hear some of the things he was saying, and he was just really entertaining.
It was incredible. But here it is really quick. I got a couple people who commented, had some questions and all that. So just want to read them really quick. Tim Ingram said, a good sparring expedition. They had rules to follow, but great to see the greats in their 50s back in the ring. I do agree with that. I mean, regardless, these guys were in phenomenal shape. And, for given the fact that they were in their 50s coming back, especially doesn't even matter if you retired 2 years ago or 15 years ago, the fact that they were able to snatch back up and get back in the ring and go and start dancing was amazing. Garrett Evans on YouTube, that was on Facebook from Tim Ingram, so thank you so much for the comment. On YouTube, Garrett Evans said, how did Roy's training in Russia after retirement correlate to this fight?
Oh, it's almost a question really answer. I mean, I know he's been over there and he's worked out. He really loves Russia. He enjoys the people over there. They built a beautiful facility out there for him. He's got his own gym out there. He's got just a ton of fan base out there. They love him. And I don't know when the last time he was out there. I know that he hasn't been out there, since I started working with him at the end of July there. I know he goes there often, but I'm not sure exactly what for this fight. At this fight, he wasn't in Russia, so
right. He wasn't really doing any training in Russia, but I'm sure anything that he learned, anything that he was implementing in Russia, I'm sure he was implementing down here too. And of course, it's a different. Each opponent that he steps in the ring with is completely different. So you're training to be ready for that particular fighter. That person might be a really great striker, or another person might have incredible endurance, or might be incredible on the offense. In regards, instead of like the defensive side, on the defense, I feel like a lot of fighters. A lot of the great fighters train specifically for that opponent that they're going to go into the ring with. You know what I mean? Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of like that Rocky thing. You know what I mean? When you're going against Drago, you got to go out to Russia, run in a bunch of snow. You know what I mean? Lift wood and stuff. Don't take the roids. You know what I'm saying? And get ready for the fight of the century, for the country. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm just playing. I got another question because and this is the second half of his question. It was on YouTube. Tanny Vane just asked, what would he do? What would he do different to wear down Tyson more?
Well, I tell you, he like I said, Roy would find his range better the next time. He would use his jab more. And I think that, even in some of the clinches, he was landing body shots. I think he's got to land, he's got to be able to sit down on the inside a little bit more when in those clinches, if the referee's going to allow the clinches to last like that, and just land some body shots on the inside. Because, I felt like Mike landed some body shots, but there were a lot of times when sometimes when Roy clinched him, but it was also the times when Roy was about to clinch him. But once Roy clinched him, he wasn't as busy. I felt like Roy was actually busier in the clinches, like he was holding and he hitting.
Yeah.
So, I just feel like on the clinches, he probably needed to sit down on some body shots a lot more.
Do you think the 2 minutes were long enough, or do you think it should have been 3? Real talk.
I mean, we were training for 3 the whole time.
No, I saw that. I was there. I was like, damn, they really are training like they're ready for, a full fight. But what are your thoughts on that? Did you agree with the 2 minutes, or do you think that was too short?
No, I felt it was too short. I mean, Roy's been a 3-minute fighter his whole life, so it was something that you had to make an adjustment to, which is not easy at all because. Mostly our whole training camp, we were doing 3-minute rounds, and you're fighting that pace. You're cardiovasculars for that pace. You are making adjustments and doing things under that pace. Then when they switch it, like I said, I don't like to use that excuse because Mike had to do the same thing. Okay. But yeah, that's definitely something that I was not for at all. I felt like the 3-minute round, it hurt both guys. I think that both guys have never fought a 3-minute round, so like I think it hurt. I think it hurt both guys. I think it would have been it could have evolved.
Yeah,
could have evolved in a better fight if you'd have been having them go 3 minutes because you have guys like I said sometimes. I say, like for Roy, on Roy's end, and it could have worked for Mike as well. I'm not going to take it away from Mike. But the thing about it is you got a guy starting within 2 minutes to start to find that range and start to find that timing, and then you send them back to the corner, and they have to restart all over again. When they've been doing this their whole life, that is their pace. I mean, that's the first time those guys probably have gone 2-minute rounds since they were possibly since they were kids. Like when you're like 14, 15 years old, 16 years old, you fight 2-minute rounds in the amateurs. You know what I mean? So
right.
Back then they were letting the kids be open fighters, fight 3-minute rounds when they were 16. So they probably neither one of them have fought a 2-minute round since they were 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So, 14, 15 anyways. But so you're looking at how many years these guys have never – that muscle memory of fighting 3-minute rounds and all the intensive fights that they fought, there's no doubt about it that affected them both, and how much, which one it affected more is up for debate all day long.
Yeah, it's such a man, because I mean, for me, I'm watching the fight, and of course, I'm gonna be a little selfish for a moment, but for me, I was getting angry because a lot of times, they would clench up, and I would be like, man, they only have a minute and a half. You know what I'm saying? I'd be like, damn, come on, let him out, come on. Let's get some points in. Let's get some shots in. Come on. Like, I'm like, man, 2 minutes is not enough. There's not enough like to get everything done. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, I was like, damn, I really, really want to see them I wish I was like, man, if they had an extra minute, there'd be a lot more going on in every single minute. And I really, really wish that was, I really do wish that was the case. And unfortunately, that is, unfortunately, that's how the cookie crumbles. But, for me, I'm like, dang, 2 minutes, man, is not enough. 2 minutes is way not enough, for real.
For sure. And, I felt like, I don't know for what reason the referee let the clinches last, what his reasoning was for it. Whether he was trying to give Mike more of a chance or trying to give Roy more of a chance to get through the round or what. But, clinches are usually broken a lot sooner than he was breaking those clinches. Those clinches were, like I said, in a 2-minute round, some of those clinches were taking up way too much of the round, and that right there was kind of like a mystery to me on what the referee's agenda was on that, whether who he was trying to give an advantage to or who he was trying to benefit.
Right.
I don't know if he felt like he was trying to help Roy get through the round, or he was trying to help Mike stay in close so Mike could work Roy and really be the stronger guy in tight because, being in there with that big, strong guy, we're trying to clinch and we're trying to slow the pace down. But we're not trying to wrestle and hustle with the guy that big. So that's not what we wanted to do. Like a lot of people say, we were there to hold and we were there to survive. That was not a survival tactic. That was something that was to slow the pace down and not let this freight train start to get momentum. And anybody in the past that's had success with him has done that. So that was not something that, those clinches being in there, or they were being together that long a period of time was not our fault. Was not Roy's fault. His fault. His thing was to initiate a clinch to slow the pace down. It was not to sit there and hold, try to survive. That was not the case. And when I hear that, I mean, to me, that's just someone that doesn't have an understanding. They apparently weren't watching that the referee was letting that go on, and they also just don't have an understanding of the game that you clinch. You're not just because you're clinching doesn't mean you're in survival mode. You're clinching to diffuse a guy's momentum, and that is something that has been a blueprint of anybody that has defeated Mike Tyson or has given him a lot of trouble.
Word.
So, being that it was going on longer than the time that it should have been, hey, that's the referee's discretion. He's the one that's supposed to,
split him up quickly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, all right, break it up. Come on, let's go. You know what I mean? But you're absolutely right on that point. Quick question, because I feel like we beat that horse to death. We got to talk about this other fight. I mean, obviously you weren't in the corner. Clearly you were not in Nate Robinson's corner. We have definitely got to talk about the Jake Paul and Nate Robinson fight. What are your thoughts on that fight, man?
I'll be honest with you. I was warming Roy up at the time that fight was going on. I was kind of I really didn't get a chance to watch it. I still haven't watched it.
Oh, you haven't watched it yet?
Bob, I wish I could give you more on it. I know he got hurt pretty bad. From what I understand, he got knocked out and stopped. And I really, when that fight was going on, I was right in the beginning stages of starting to warm Roy up. Yeah. And I never got a chance to watch it when I got back home. For selfish reasons of any time that I had, I've been very, very busy, but any time that I had a chance to watch anything, I watched Mike and Roy fight again. So I really can't give you a lot on that, unfortunately.
That's totally understandable, man. I ain't mad at you. You know what I mean? I ain't mad at you about that. That makes sense. I would do that too. I'd watch it over and over and over again, study, and make sure that the next fight, the next time they get in the ring together, it's a different outcome or a better outcome or it's a better fight. You are somebody.
A little one eye that I did have on it. I could just tell you that I thought that Jake Paul looked like that he definitely had been in the boxing ring.
Yeah.
A lot more than Nate Robinson. You could tell.
Yeah.
Jake had experience. I know, some of the guys working with him, BK Flores, who I know for years. He put a lot of great work in with Jake Paul, and that he had Jake in great shape and really sharp for that fight. And you could see from, like I said, the little parts that I was able to see that you could definitely tell that he was the guy that was the way more polished boxer by far. I wasn't fortunate enough to see, like I said, the devastating knockout, but. The parts that I did see, you could see that Jake was by far the more polished and sharper boxer.
Yeah. One last question before I let you go, man. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the future of boxing? Because I've asked this with Roy the last time when I sat down with him and everything, and you know how UFC has become quite a juggernaut of a sport. It's right there out there in the forefront, and I could see that. How boxing has had a little bit of a taken a side seat to in the sports realm. What are your thoughts on the future of boxing?
Well, as we know, everything's in limbo right now. Things can go back to normal. I just think boxing has a bright future. I got a lot of great prospects that are coming up. Guys that I feel have world-class potential. So we're looking forward to getting back to normal, getting back started. And, there's a lot of young prospects that I know through the amateurs and some young pros that I think that are really good prospects, entertaining prospects. So I think it's in a great place. Like I said, as long as things can get back to normal, I think that boxing is something that, has ebbs and flows. But I just think that, I don't think boxing's going anywhere. I think boxing is just you're going to always have your diehard boxing fans, people who love boxing more than anything.
True.
So, I feel it's going to be in a great place. A great fight Saturday. Errol Spence, Danny Garcia.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's all what Errol Spence has after the accident that he had. I think he's a great fighter. I think Danny's a great fighter. I would have leaned towards Errol if things would have never happened the way they did. But now is he taking a heck of a fight, like to come back after 15-month layoff and an accident like that. You got to give it to him to be able to say, my first fight back, I'm going to fight Danny Garcia.
Yeah.
You know, how the fight's going to turn out, I'll tell you, it's all what Spence. You know, I think it's a great fight either way. You know, regardless. But I would have leaned towards Spence, but now I'm kind of like really up in the air to see if he's going to be that guy that he's been in the past. I felt like the last fight he wasn't. Even against Porter, I feel like the weight thing has a lot to do with his performances in the last couple fights. Even I feel like he blows up in weight and gets a little heavier than he probably should, and has to come down. I think 47 is becoming very difficult for him, so that may play a factor, especially with the layoff that he's had and the accident that he had. You know, Garcia is looking better and better in this fight as the days approach. Even in my mind, some of the things, but. It's all what Spence has, man. What he has after this whole thing happened.
It's definitely going to be a sight to see, you know, coming up this weekend, just to see that fight and everything. And, of course, for me, I'm excited to see boxing kind of come back in the forefront again. You know what I'm saying? And I think that Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. fight most definitely helped push that sport back in the forefront again. And you know, it's kind of reviving the approach, you know, reviving the sport and reviving and bringing younger eyes to the sport as well. Because, you know, you got Jake Paul, whether you think he's good or not. You know, I personally don't think he's, I think he has very little skill. He has a name because he's on YouTube. But at the same time, he is helping putting it out there for the younger crowd and for the younger audience to be introduced and interested in boxing. So hopefully they look at him and then they go and find some real fighters out there. And that's just my personal 2 cents on that. But here, real quick, I know that you have a YouTube channel because we got to wrap this up. You got a YouTube channel. Tell us where can they find your YouTube channel? What is it and where can they find it?
I have the World Class Boxing channel on YouTube. And you could also follow me at Tommy Yankello Boxing, and on Facebook, Tommy Yankello's World Class Boxing Gym. And I have a ton of videos on my YouTube channel, World Class Boxing channel. Probably about 178, 179 videos. A lot of great boxing instruction, and I also have a lot of informative stuff on my Instagram page as well. So. Check those out, man. If you're a boxer of any level, you know, whether you're starting, whether you just enjoy the sport, I got a lot of good information on there for you to check out.
That's dope. You know, guys, go definitely check him out on Instagram, YouTube, even on Twitter as well. He has a lot of incredibly informative stuff out there. You got to go check him out. He's fantastic. Tom, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it, man. Seriously, thank you so much.
I appreciate you, Pascal. Thank you, man.
Anytime, man. Anytime. Would love to have you back on. You know, I know that you guys, I'm sure you got some fights coming up. Maybe. Yep. Are you working on some other fights right now?
Yeah, I actually have one of my middleweights fighting next Saturday down in South Carolina. I have Keontae Irving, who was the 2018 National Golden Glove champion. Whoa. The middleweight, you'll love to see him. He's a puncher. He's 7-0 right now with 7 knockouts. All of his knockouts have been. He's only had one fight go past the second round. Oh. He's 7-0, 7 knockouts. Very good fighter. He'll be fighting next Saturday down in South Carolina. And we were supposed to have a national amateur tournament this week as well. This week actually, and it got postponed because of COVID. And so hopefully that's going to come up and back. They're going to reschedule that sometime in January. They're supposed to, hopefully January, February. And I'll be taking a lot of kids to that. I have about 4 guys going to go to that national tournament. And I have some really good guys that I feel like could become national champion as well. So that'll be the next thing. Hopefully in January that'll be going on. And as well, hopefully some more pro fights are going to open up. And then hopefully we'll see what happens with Roy.
Yeah.
Another big announcement. You know, I know there's a lot of fights that are out there that people are talking about him, you know, doing. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we most definitely will, man. I'm excited, and I can't wait to hear. I can't wait to hear about your fight that's coming up next Saturday. And, you know, of course, we're going to be on the lookout for all the stuff that you got going on. So I'd love to have you on again very, very soon. But anyway, guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in, checking out the show, and being a part of the conversation. Be sure to hit that like button down below and crush that subscribe button. That would really mean a lot. We got to get going. Be good to yourselves. Be good to one another. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. This is The Pascal Show. Bye.
Thanks, Pascal.
Hey, thank you, man.
Love, peace, and wellness for the holidays. Don't cancel them. Prepare, STL. Decorate. Make it as normal as you can, but slow the spread of COVID. Wear a mask. Wash your hands. Watch your distance. Prepare, STL, helping St. Louisans of color prepare and prevail.
But you see how he makes these S's in his body right here? That's where he's hanging on, and then he's moving forward with the locomotion of his ribs. That is classic Missouri rat snake right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab him before he gets into a hole. Now, these snakes are not biters. They won't bite as long as you don't squeeze them. If you just stop them like this, it'll freeze them, and then you just gently pull them back. As long as you don't squeeze them, they won't bite.
Yo, Mike, what's up, man?
Guy? Good to see you, man.
Yeah, so Sugar Fire.
Yeah.
Fully open, right?
Yeah, we're pretty much open. You can't sit inside yet. Monday you can sit inside a little bit. We'll have 25% of the tables inside, and then we're letting it rip outside.
So I know that there's a lot of people really concerned about staying safe and all of that. So what are you guys doing in regards to that?
Well, we have extra people to clean and rub everything down all the time. Everybody inside's wearing masks. And we have those little stickers on the ground so everyone can stay 6 feet apart.
Right on.
The tables are all spaced out, inside and outside.
Sugar Fire, open in full effect right now. They're staying healthy, they're staying clean. Go get you a rack of ribs. Sugar Fire, open right now.
Thanks.
The Fur and Leather Center, providing the highest of fur and leather goods.
You're gonna perform tonight.
I can't make this interview boring because this man is too